Before us, we have a pretty light agenda, but it's one issue, and we have before us we're having a public hearing tonight. So I'm gonna take a motion, if I could, to,
Motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
okay. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing's now open. This is the notice that went out. There will be a public hearing in the Holyoke City Council's Development and Governmental Relations Committee on Wednesday, 13 January at 6:30 PM at Holyoke City Hall in the council chambers. Okay, well, it'd be nice if this was this is it. To hear special permit applications for Sprint Spectrum LP and co-applicant T-Mobile Northeast. Application for approval of a 199-foot new wireless telecom facility to be located at 200 Northampton Street, Holyoke, Mass. And application for approval of a 99-foot new wireless telecom facility inside the Floodplain Overlay District at the same location. So with us tonight, I think we have, is Attorney Mike Dolan? Yes. Okay. Counselor, why don't you tell us what's happening, and we're starting from the start.
Yeah. Once again, my name is Mike Dolan from the law firm of Brown Rudnick here on behalf of the co-applicants. I'm sure the council members remember our application previously. We went through the full process, received an approval, and subsequent to that, there was an abutters list issue that apparently the city had not included all abutters, so out of an abundance of caution, we have reapplied to ensure that everyone does get proper notice. As is mentioned in our application, my clients have FCC licenses to operate a wireless network throughout the country, including in this area here in Holyoke. The applicants, as part of their network, currently have antenna facilities located on the existing 372-foot smokestack on the Mount Tom Power Station property. As you are well aware, the power plant is being decommissioned along with its apparatus there, including the smokestack, and the applicants have agreed to relocate their existing wireless antenna facilities to a new location. What my clients are proposing to do is construct a 199-foot monopole-style tower on a former parking lot area of the Mount Tom Power Station property, which would allow the applicants to continue to provide the same level of coverage as they're providing now, with granted some diminution because their existing antennas are on a 372-foot structure, so they're going to be losing a significant amount of coverage, but this is the next best thing we can do. As demonstrated in the radio frequency engineer's reports included with our application and the coverage maps, this proposed facility would help fill in that gap in coverage we would have without the antennas on the smokestack facility. So that's what we're trying to do, is replicate as best we can the coverage that we have now for our existing customers. The facility would help to provide continuous coverage in the currently serviced sections of Route 91 and Route 5 and in the vicinity of the facility, as well as other area residents and businesses in Holyoke. So T-Mobile's proposing 9 antennas at the 195-foot level of the new 199-foot monopole. Sprint would be proposing 9 antennas at the 185-foot center line height on the proposed facility. As a result of the 200-foot limit in the zoning ordinance on the height of wireless antenna structures, the applicants are proposing a 199-foot monopole so that we don't need to come before this body seeking any dimensional relief for height. As I mentioned, the applicants currently have their antennas at the 333-foot height on the smokestack, as well as the 202-foot height. So This structure is considerably smaller, but shorter, but nevertheless, we feel like we can get a good chunk of the coverage back with this facility. T-Mobile and Sprint's antennas will be connected to ground equipment on equipment platforms by cabling that will run through the interior of the monopole. The facility will also include related amplifiers, cables, fiber, remote radio heads, and surge arresters. In this instance, we're pleased that we found this location for our proposed facility. From a land use planning perspective, we think it's an ideal location. It's an 88-acre tract of land on the former power station property. It's zoned general industry and is not in close proximity to any real neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods. Due to the sight lines and the tree canopies, the visibility of the monopole will be relatively limited. Enclosed with our application are photo simulations from the balloon float demonstration, which was conducted by the applicants previously. And the photos of that balloon float, which show a balloon float at a bottom height of 199 feet. So actually the balloon is actually higher than the 200, but we did that to ensure that we would have a representation of something higher than at least 199 feet. What we did then is photo simulation in the proposed facility where that balloon shows up on the horizon, and from those photo simulations you can get an idea as to what our proposed facility would look like. In addition to Sprint and T-Mobile, the facility is of a sufficient height to allow for 2 other co-locators to put their antennas on the structure, essentially to help provide one location where multiple telecommunications companies could operate their networks and minimize the intrusion of new wireless antenna structures in Holyoke. Pursuant to the Holyoke zoning ordinance, the proposed project requires a special permit for a personal wireless services facility, as well as a special permit for new construction within the floodplain overlay district. We have previously met with the Holyoke Planning Department, the Law Department, the Economic Development staff, and the Building Department, and we've addressed all of the comments and concerns they had regarding our proposed facility. I would also like to add that the City of Holyoke has indicated a desire to locate its own municipal antennas on this structure. In the future, there seems to be a need that will be crystallizing at some point in the future, and we have agreed to allow the city to locate their antennas on our structure below the 150-foot level and pursuant to a written agreement, which is quite standard. So with that, I just would refer the board as well to the application we submitted, our supporting legal brief and attachments, and we're here prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Attorney Dolan. Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Attorney Dolan. First of all, on a public note, I'd just like to apologize to you and your clients and to the abutters who weren't notified. I know it was an honest mistake. We've been told it will not happen again. It was a database, a glitch in the database, so what I've been told. But to you and the abutters who weren't notified, we do apologize. Being that this is the second public hearing, but essentially it's the first public hearing, I'd just like to clarify a few things. The items that we received in the first public hearing, which Mike has behind him, the maps, we have a packet right here, we have a map on the wall in our office, is part, I would suggest would be part of the public record. As always, they are open for public scrutiny, and we hang on to them until we take our final, as long as we have to, but until we take our final vote. I don't know if you want that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman. It's a bit unusual, but I just wanted to be on record stating that we have those 4.
Certainly.
for keeping. Well, I'll make a motion that they are part of public record if nobody objects.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye. At that first meeting, I had two questions. You touched on, based on one of them, re-looking at the map, the new proposed location is on the edge of the floodplain. It's north of what the smokestack is now, closer to the East Hampton line, and as you stated tonight, not near any residential property.
Correct.
Okay. And the second question, if you remember, Attorney Dolan, was, and I don't think you had a full answer, but it may not be necessarily your answer to give, but I was concerned about, at that time, the future development of the property. We have heard back both from the current owner and from a group that were put together to analyze, what could be done with the property, and some fairly sound proposals have come back to the city in terms of solar power, in terms of some development, and what can be done on a very difficult property to develop because of a number of issues, the river, railroad tracks, and of course, I think the third part to that answer was the commitment to the smokestack and the hazardous cleanup, which I believe Suez is committed to doing, as they have to, but currently on track to do.
That's all correct. It is the property owner's intention as part of the decommission to have that smokestack removed. But the first order of business is for us to get off of it so they can begin their evaluative process, which has a number of different steps to it in concert with other actions they have to take as part of the decommissioning. So, as I think you all know, and as part of the record from before, which we are adding now to the public record, we have correspondence from the landowner in that regard, as well as, I believe, even off the record, but for public consumption, the fact that they have agreed to these, they've stated their position with respect to the smokestack removal in the future, and I think they've cleared that up for everybody.
Okay. And the smokestack question, just to be on record, was our Chairman Bartley's question, which I know he went to great detail, into depth about that. One of the things that we learned at the last meeting was that the tower will be owned by your clients for a period of time. Is that changed at all?
No, for a very short period of time, and then it will go to the property owner, and we will be subtenants on that structure.
Okay. We were interested in that for a number of reasons. One, property tax, but two, for future development, but for future, site use and all that. Is there any changes from the first public hearing to this public hearing that you haven't noted yet?
No, our application is identical, as is our proposed facility.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the committee want to ask a question of Attorney Dolan at this point? Go ahead, Councilor Sullivan. Okay, turn the microphone on, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. You mentioned that the city had requested use of the tower as well. Well, could you tell me what department in the city or who requested that?
I believe it was the fire department, public safety, and we worked through the legal department. They were the facilitator of that information, but they're the ones who made that request to us on behalf of the fire and public safety folks, and we responded accordingly.
Okay. Right now, this stack, it's thrown a couple of numbers out, but roughly somewhere between 375 and 400 feet. And you're going to lose some coverage by reducing it to 199 feet, right? What would happen if you didn't get a tower at all on this site, or had to go somewhere else with it?
Well, if we didn't have a tower here, we'd have a huge hole in our network. And to the extent we move it in any material way, whether that be distance-wise, height-wise, in relation to certain topographies, we could have a severe diminution in coverage because of that. So this was our way to, as I mentioned earlier, to kind of replicate as best we can the coverage that we had. This is very close to the existing smokestack, relatively speaking. It's on the industrial property where we are now. And we're trying to work, we obviously are working within the 200-foot limit that the city of Holyoke has, so we're going to 199, so we can work within the land use planning paradigms that the city has come up with.
Okay, but there's no other site or potential location that it could go to?
There's no other location in the area where we need a facility that would provide adequate coverage for what we need to do to fill a gap in coverage without this site.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Tomlin?
Thank you, Attorney. Just a quick question. You're working for, representing two?
That's correct.
Is it one tower or two towers?
One tower.
Okay, and they're going to put it on different levels?
The top level at 195 feet will be the T-Mobile antennas, and then at 185, they have to have about a 10-foot separation in antennas. 185 is where Sprint will go, and then the two future carriers could go at 175, 165, and then the town's equipment could go below 150. And that was deemed to be plenty of height for what their future needs may be.
Right, and the towers, you said it's what kind of tower is that, mono?
Monopole.
Okay, and you said it's sort of going to blend in with the area, or is it
Well,
going to be noticeable with?
Yeah, I mean, it's a gray matte finish, which in the industry is the kind of preferred look to kind of blend into a skyline. And as I mentioned earlier, given what's in that area and topography, as new 199-foot towers go, this is very reasonable as far as a visual impact. Obviously, you can't hide a 199-foot tower, but what we're saying is where we're proposing it on a basis of the amount of people affected by it, the number will be very small.
Okay, and as stated earlier, the tower is on the property of the power plant right now?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and that goes, when that power plant is gone, I mean, the property there, the tower is going to stay. So we have an agreement to stay
We'll
in that lot.
we'll have a lease with certain renewal terms, and, that the owner of that property may convey that, they may keep it, we don't know, but we'll have a real estate interest to enjoy the benefits of that structure for some time.
Okay, and I mean, down the road, if you have something new there, a new owner, they could say, no, we don't want this here, or?
No, unless they had those rights under our lease, but that's not the way we envision that working.
So once it's there, it's going to be there for
And
several years?
well, until our leasehold rights expire as far as how many renewal terms we have, then we'd have to renegotiate, or we may, to the extent we didn't have a need for it in the future, it could end at that point too.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much again for being here. My question is, where are the nearest, with regards to both your clients, antennas that they currently have within the area of this current proposed tower?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but with our original application, we included the site inventory list of all of our, each company's respective antenna facilities within I forget what the radius was, maybe a 2-mile radius within this site. And the closest ones are at least over a mile away for both companies.
Okay, and then, thank you so much. And then my next question is, the number of customers, specifically in the city of Holyoke, that would have diminished coverage if, again, to piggyback off of my colleague, Councilor Sullivan's question, who would be affected by the diminished coverage if, let's say, for example, the coverage wasn't there, how many customers would be affected or impacted?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. I can tell you that it's not only residents who can pull a signal from it and businesses, but it's commuters as well, which is a very, very high number.
Thank you so much.
I forgot to ask this the last time around. At the top of the smokestack, there's now a flashing light for I guess for air traffic. Are you required to have that with the 199?
We will not, this tower will not be lit.
It does, even from the top, you don't have a flashing?
No.
It's not required?
Nope.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
And we have to go through a full FAA screen to come to that conclusion. It's not something we unilaterally decide, so we have to.
No, I gather
Yeah,
that.
so the other one tripped an FAA regulation that it had to be lit, ours would not.
Okay.
It's low enough.
And I don't think we explored this last time, but we might as well ask the question now. Just a what if. So as you know, we just recommend, that's all this body does, but we're 5 city councilors, so we're a third of the body. So we make a recommendation to the full city council, and the full city council, depending upon what happens here, just say hypothetical, at some point we'll close the hearing, and then it goes to full city council, whether we do it today or we do it another time. At some point it goes to the full city council, and then the full city council decides by a majority vote. There's not a 2/3 or a 3/4, it's a majority vote to city council. Now, let's just say hypothetically the majority votes to deny. What would be your client's recourse at that point?
Well, I suppose my clients would consider their appeal rights, how they would view this application, and our denial of filling a gap in coverage under the 1996 Telecommunications Act, whether we'd want to commence a lawsuit in federal court with a parallel one in state court. These are the types of, that would be our legal recourse vis-a-vis us and the property owner. We'd have a real problem because they want to get on with the business of decommissioning things out there, and our leasehold rights, they can actually force us down. So we'd be in a real tough place.
Okay, any other questions for Attorney Dolan? No? Thank you, Attorney Dolan, I appreciate it. At this point, we're in public hearing, so we're here to listen to you, the public, and so there's 2 ways we're going to do it. We're going to hear for those in favor and those opposed. I don't have to do it in any particular order, but does the committee care which way we do it? Okay, why don't we? Okay, is there anyone in here before us tonight who would want to speak in favor of this application? And if you'd want to speak in favor, or whether you do or you don't, but you step up to the mic and first raise your hand. Is there anyone in favor? Okay, all right. Okay, let's go the other side. Were they, Attorney Dolan? Yeah.
Just as far as one further update regarding the site, in the interim, we have also secured our Conservation Commission approval, so.
Thank you. Okay. That's noted. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak in opposition? But before we do that, I have we'll just get to that. I have a letter which is presented to me, and I'm going to pass it to the committee. Councilor Sullivan, Councilor McGivern, Councilor Roman, Councilor Tallman. Just an interest. I'm a pretty good speed reader, so I'm going to. This is a letter dated January 11th, 2016, of which I received a copy of it today. And it's from Peter Roscotton to the members of the City Council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our case against the cell tower development to be located at Mount Tom. I am sorry that I cannot attend. We strongly oppose this development on the following grounds, and there are 4 grounds. So number 1, he says, replacing an ugly stack with an ugly tower just does not improve our next door neighbor's landscape. 199 feet is over 2.5 times the height of our hotel and equivalent to a 15-story building. It will damage the overall area and forever will destroy the views down from Mount Tom and the Connecticut River Valley. Number 2, with the new cell tower, long-term development on this amazing site will most likely never happen. It would be short-sighted for the city to not allow better plans to take effect on this property. We need new and productive taxpayers. Number 3, in my opinion, the proposed cell tower development has failed to prove its need. Carriers such as Verizon, well, it's not Verizon, but carriers such as Verizon do not find it necessary to have an antenna, carriers such as Verizon do not find it necessary to have an antenna on the stack or to initiate this development. They are using alternative sites like the top of our hotel building and other structures throughout the town. 4, I do not believe the Holyoke community realizes what, or more specifically, where this tower is proposed. 200 Northampton Street does not mean Mount Tom power plant to anyone. Furthermore, if you Google or look it up, it does not show where it actually is. I am willing to bet that a lot more people would be involved if they realized what was going on and the negative ramifications of this proposed tower. I kindly urge you to do the right thing. Sincerely yours, Peter Roscott, President. Okay, so with that, gentleman in the front, sir. Attorney Frere, I'm just going to ask you to come to the mic, and then,
Just make sure it's still on, please.
Hello?
okay, and then if you would, I can certainly spell Bob, but if you could spell your last name.
It's Robert N. Frater, F-R-A-T-A-R.
P-A-R, okay, and you're,
I'm an attorney representing Peter Roscothan and Michael Korda of the Law Cabin, Banquet and Meeting House, the Delaney House, and the D Hotel and Suites.
and you're attorney with whom, and where?
Frater, Kern, and Kelly, we're in 1441 Main Street in Springfield.
Great, okay, go ahead, Counselor.
So I'm here this evening because Peter is not able to be here, and Mick was not able to be here as well, and asked if I would come and represent them. And they are very passionate about your city and the city they're in. They love the place, as you know. They've done a ton of work with you folks back and forth and want to continue to do all of that. They've made their facilities available to the city over the years and whatnot whenever needed, and they've done a lot of great things for the city. Peter's very passionate about this and really feels that the location that this tower is in would be much better served by using the multi-page document that's prepared for all the things that could be done to this particular area as opposed to putting in a cell tower. So that's kind of what his initial reaction is to this. He has a number of reasons for objecting to the cell tower installation. The first one being the fact that unfortunately there was, we think, an error in the city council notification referencing the property at 200 North Main Street. Northampton Street, I'm sorry. It actually is 2.9 miles south of that. So was that confusing to people who might have been looking at this? I know that's, we're all here today, and I don't consider that a major issue, but that was one concern that he did have. The next one we had was that the Mount Tom power plant land is the most amazing piece of waterfront property in Holyoke, and why kill the future potential of this property with one ugly tower in the middle of it, was his comment. The next one is the city of Holyoke needs development, and the Mount Tom power plant property at the northeast entrance to the city represents a major opportunity for development, which would benefit not only the owner of the property as well as the city. And think of the tax revenue that could be generated if more were being done within that particular property. Replacing an ugly smokestack with a cell tower does not make this right. Peter and his facilities and the patrons of the hotel we're going to be having to stare at this ugly thing for years to come. The height of the tower is equivalent to a 15-story building. The next one is that, as you know, in November 2015, the City of Holyoke financed the Mount Tom power plant reuse study, which I just mentioned. It has 41 pages. Why can't that be utilized to add to the development of this property? Among other things, the reuse study development talks about making the property multi-purpose, connecting the community to the river, generating new tax revenue, and the going green idea to make things green. Why was the study considered and with the installation of the cell tower? I don't know if it was or it wasn't. And why kill all the ideas of the study without giving them a chance? The next point he makes is that, as stated above, the cell tower is the height of a 15-story building, is approximately 2.5 times higher than the D Hotel is. It will be seen for miles even in South Hadley and Northampton, and is at the point of the northerly gateway into the city. So that's the first thing people coming south are going to be looking at, is this gigantic tower. The property upon which the cell tower will be built, as was mentioned, is located in the Floodplain Overlay District. The Overlay District has certain requirements, as I'm sure you know, for what will be allowed in it. One is single-family dwellings. Another one is membership clubs. Another one is outdoor recreation facilities, and then manufacturing and assembly operations. There's nothing in that list that talks about putting a cell tower within this FOD area. So how are you allowed to do that if it's not specifically stated, you know, within the documents? The city council does have the right to grant a special permit for building in the floodplain overlay district, but only pursuant to the provisions of the zoning ordinance, and there is no references that we found in the zoning ordinance to granting a special permit for a cell tower within this location. The next point we have is that with respect to the wireless telecommunication and antennas, one of the things that was discussed here was minimizing the total number of wireless telecommunications facilities and antennas throughout the community. According to our information, there are already at least 35 wireless communication facilities within not only the city of Holyoke, but the surrounding communities. There's 35 of them out there. Can't they put these things on some of those 35? Maybe they can't, but that's a concern that we would have, and a question we would have as to why that couldn't happen. To name a few, we mentioned, as mentioned, the Verizon has a cell tower on top of the D Hotel. Not that Peter Roscott is looking for more business from anyone else. He's just saying, you know, they have one on top of their facility, which seems to be working well. The goals that are listed in the documents are encourage users of wireless telecommunications facilities and antennas to locate them to the extent possible in areas where the adverse impact on the community is minimal. This 199-foot tall cell tower will have an adverse impact on the northern entrance of the city as well as on the adjacent D Hotel and Delaney House properties. It will be a huge permanent tower which will be visible for miles. The next goal listed is encourage users of wireless telecommunication facilities and antennas to configure them in a way that minimizes the adverse visual impact of the wireless telecommunication facilities and antennas through careful design, siting, landscape screening, and innovative camouflage techniques. In our opinion, this provision is being totally disregarded. The, quote, adverse visual impact, end quote, of this cell tower will be extreme and will not be minimized, and due to the size of the tower, I don't know how they're going to hide it, you know, and keep it hidden with landscape screening. The next point has to do with aesthetics, and the aesthetics section of the zoning ordinance says the design of the buildings and related structures shall, to the extent possible, use materials, colors, textures, screening, and landscaping that will blend them into the natural setting and surrounding buildings. Due to its size and height, it is not possible for this very tall cell tower to blend in and comply with this requirement. So in short, how does the installation of this cell tower satisfy any of these goals which are part of the zoning ordinance guidelines for the siting of cell towers? There are additional questions that we have that had to do with the various provisions that the proposed developers of the cell tower would have to do, but it sounds as though they have satisfied those in terms of the various sections of the zoning ordinance. So I'll move on a bit here. One of the comments is, does the location of the cell tower comply with a particular section of the zoning ordinance which, quote, says siting of the proposed wireless telecommunications facility or antenna will be such that the view of the facility from adjacent abutters, residential properties, and other areas of the site of the city will be as limited as practicable. And as stated above, the view of the cell tower from the D Hotel and the Delaney House will not at all be limited and will be in the face of both of those facilities for years to come. Moving along, and then the question on the lighting, I'm happy to hear that there will not be any lighting. That's good. And that is essentially it. In conclusion, I would like to say that many of the residents of Holyoke and the Holyoke business owners have very high hopes for the development of this beautiful waterfront property. Please do not disappoint them, and we would respectfully request that you not honor these requests that are being suggested here. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Frater. Do any committee members have a question for Attorney Frater? Councilor Sullivan?
Was the owners of the Delaney House ever approached to duplicate the towers the ones they have on the top of the hotel there?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, and would they be agreeable to such an arrangement?
They're agreeable to installing, depending on what the size would be, I think they would be, yes. That's not their goal here for me to be discussing this today, but I think that provided they had sufficient room, they would be willing to put additional facilities that would help the town, or the city, I should say, they would be willing to do that, yes.
Well, what I'm saying is they've allowed other communications companies to locate antennas there. Have they denied
No,
the other ones, or?
no, to my knowledge, they've not been approached by anybody else.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, and Peter and Mick are certainly wonderful corporate citizens of the city of Holyoke and of the region, to be even more broader about it. And I understand, because I think I had a chance to talk to Peter, I understand where he's coming from. Attorney, are you aware and familiar with the Telecommunications Act, and are your clients aware of that? We need, to deny this type of application, we need some specific reasons under that Telecommunications Act, or we open ourselves up to some liability. And I didn't hear any of those specific, maybe a little bit, through the woods, but I didn't hear anything that gave us teeth to deny this application.
No, frankly, we didn't, we haven't researched that. We can certainly do that.
Hey, most people don't. The only reason we do is because they keep coming before us.
Right, right. But this, we were not at the previous hearing because we weren't notified of it.
I
Otherwise, we
understand.
might have done that research, but we can certainly do that and get back to you if you'd like.
Yeah, no, I do understand.
Okay.
And Peter's questions, and Mick, but Peter, is certainly through you, are very good questions. And some of them, I think you've heard tonight, we did ask at the first public hearing, and we asked again tonight. The development of the property is very important. Two things have happened since the first public hearing. One, the group has come back to the city with a preliminary proposal that the property owner is buying into, which I think is important. A lot of it has to do with a solar field. Is it the best proposal in terms of bang for a dollar for the city? No. Probably not. Can we get to the riverfront property to develop that? Probably not. Between the floodplain, between the railroad and everything, it's a tough piece of property to develop. We haven't given up hope, but certainly we want to do that. One of the things we wanted to know was where the cell tower would be located on the property, which is what I asked again this evening, where it's very close to the East Hampton line, which is as far north as you can get it on the edge of the floodplain itself. I think that trips how built up the tower has to be in terms of a pad or whatever they call it these days. In the we did, by the way, Attorney Dolan, we did pass an ordinance on the public safety thing, so I hope they gave you a copy of that, because we do appreciate what you said this evening about allowing the city to put public safety antennas on there. But thank you, and I think the points Peter are making are well taken, but I'm not too sure they give us the teeth we need, or if we want to,
Well, thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other member of the public would like to speak against, in favor on this matter? Going once, going twice? Okay. Hearing none.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Under discussion? Discussion? Councilor McGivern?
My motion is to close the public hearing because I feel we have information from all parties present, both what we already had and what was represented this evening. I think we're familiar with the issues here. I think there is some time consideration to what needs to be done with the property in terms of getting that smokestack down as quickly as possible while we have a commitment from the property owner. Allowing the vendors of the petition here to get a stack to keep their coverage. Both attorneys made arguments on each side. I think the presentation from the group that shows us the reuse at this time might be the best would be that solar field development, which Suez is bitten into. It's preliminary, but it certainly sounds like it would work. By putting a tower on the property, it would help out the property owner in terms of giving them some revenue in terms of what they're doing as their due diligence of cleaning up the property and dismantling the power plant itself. I think it shows a commitment that we're working together. I'm not crazy about cell phone towers, but I do know that tower probably points more towards Ward 8 the good Ward 2 counselor, I'm sure, is familiar with Ward 8. The funny thing about cell towers and cell phones is we travel a lot. And when I'm over at that little restaurant called Dockside, I like to know my cell phone is working so I can call back to my family. And it's the necessary evil of the day and age of cell phones. Some of us, when we grew up, didn't have them, Michael, right? Some of us got them very late in life, and some of us have our kids to teach us how to use the new iPhones and all that. Getting back on track, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I just think we have what we need. I think, with all due respect to the points made by Peter Rosenkamp, I really think that we don't have a reason to deny this, and I think the quicker we move on it, the better it is to get the stack down, to get this going forward, and I would be willing to make a motion to adopt with the necessary conditions.
Okay, so we're still in discussion on the motion to close the public hearing. Any other councilors want to speak on that? Okay, on the motion, all in favor to close the public hearing? Aye. Okay, that's the motion.
Make a motion to adopt the petition as presented with the public safety, I believe, not condition, but the public safety acceptance. That is a condition, Mr. Chairman, but the last time we had wording that said at the 150-foot level, the public safety antennas would be allowed by the owners of the tower, developers of the tower.
So just to sort of summarize it, the motion is to adopt a special permit with the condition to have the public safety component added at the halfway point. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Under discussion? Okay, I guess I can say something then. I want to thank Peter and Mick and Attorney Frater for an excellent presentation. I think some important points were raised, at least the ones I took in my notes. I think there were, I agree with virtually everything you say, Attorney Frater, on this. But as far as aesthetics go, as far as I wish Sprint T-Mobile could go on top of the D Hotel. I wish they would even solicit that. You can make an offer if you want to them. I wish we didn't even have to have a monopole. They're homely, terrible-looking things, no matter how you look at it. I bet $1 million you're not going to find a monopole in the middle of Newport, Rhode Island. I bet you won't find one anywhere in Greenwich, Connecticut. But gee whiz, there's one right there in one of the most aesthetically pleasing parts of Holyoke, Mass. Alternatively, we've been stuck with a 372-foot smokestack by what has virtually been an absentee owner for the last 15 years. Now, they were gracious enough to send in a senior vice president at one of our last hearings, and it sounded like he wanted to move this thing along, but he made no commitment to it whatsoever. He liked the plan. Great. That's great. We all liked it too. Got a lot of nice pictures, and they're on color, and they look really swell. But he made no commitment. On the other side of the coin, here's this guy, and they're not giving up their property either. We had all these wonderful green organizations in here. Well, GDF Suez and whoever their subsequent name is, they're not giving up their foothold in Holyoke, and especially in that beautiful part of town. So, if we go the other way on this, how are they going to come down on Holyoke now? They've already cut every single job that they could cut. There are no more jobs up there. The tax base revenue is virtually nil, but here we are. I mean, so we're it's a balancing act, Attorney Frater, on that one. So this is a hard vote on this. Just for clarification, I appreciate Councilor McGivern. It was a technical issue on the abutters thing. That technical issue did not originate with this body. I want that clearly on the record, because there's been some controversy among members of this body, but it did not originate here. It originated elsewhere. It was a human error. These things happen, but it was in another office, not here. So I want that super duper clear. There's really, You know, Attorney Dolan, I appreciate your presentation again. This is your third time, I think, in front of this body. It might be the fourth, but it's at least the third. I appreciate your presentation and all your support. I think you've, the only thing you added that I didn't know was the quantity of antennas that were on there, but I think otherwise you've pretty much hit every, tonight you hit every other highlight that we had. You know, I'm confident that our legal department has reviewed this, that we have the proper granting authority is right here, that our city ordinances give us that proper authority. I don't think there's any challenge on that regard. But that's me. I'm just more disappointed with it's always been my opinion is the aesthetics out there could be better than they are. But that's that. That's all I got. Okay, so Councilor Roman.
Yes, I'd just like to rise and publicly state before the vote. I happen to agree with Councilor Bartley on all those points, and thank you, Councilor McGivern, for always teaching the new councilors the history and the lessons, and thank you so much, and I completely agree. Where I do have to rise with the abutter is around these 1996 Telecommunications Acts, and again, human error or not, had you had the time to research, I'm sure Attorney Frater, you would have done that, so I am going to vote against the recommendation. And again, based on this modal tower, I don't think it's the right fit for that area of our community and the right development track that we should be going. It looks like it's going to pass, but I am going to vote against it because I feel it's the wrong economic development track for our city. I don't believe a cell phone tower, regardless of how many antennas or not, are the right fit for that neighborhood in the city of Holyoke. And yes, I'm Ward 2, and I agree in the Ward 8, and thank you, Councilor McGivern, for saying that, but I don't think it's the right fit for our city, our community, or our constituents in that section of the city, so I'll be voting no.
Councilor Cohen.
I just want to make a brief statement. I agree with Councilor McGivern. I mean, Attorney Dolan, you brought this forward to us. This is my first time on this committee and first time really hearing the whole scenario here, and did a little research on this ahead of time. And I've been involved with cell towers probably going back 10, 15 years with different, areas and on the ordinance committee before this. And Attorney Frater, I did talk to Peter recently, and I think he understands the issue, and I think he brought up every point he spoke to me about in the letter, as you stated. But it's hard to deny something when they came forward and they checked with the legal, the Conservation Commission, Economic Development. They're willing to put a public safety, net up there on the tower, antenna there, and it's something that it's part of our daily life today. I mean, cell towers they go up all the time, and some have to be taken down, some have to be put up. They move from one spot to another, and we're not crazy about them, but it's the way of the world today. And as I said, it's a difficult vote, but stating that what I heard tonight from Attorney Dolan, I agree that this is something. It's the best fit for that area. It's best to have an antenna up there because we're losing the stack and the company taking down the building. You need coverage, and it's important that we that move on this issue and give you the coverage that's needed.
Any other councilors want to speak? Sullivan?
Okay. I just don't buy the idea that there's nowhere else to go. And I find it very strange that with the other telecommunications companies having found a place a quarter mile away, and that you've never approached, or your clients have never approached them. Okay. The other problem is you're locking in a long-term lease without a firm commitment. We don't have a firm commitment from Suez that they're actually going to do. We have some good intentions and some promises, and we've seen a lot of promises come through this town and never come to any fulfillment. And this kind of lease could lock in a future developer or limit the use going forward. Myself, I'd like to see this a little more research done on it. I think it needs a little more thought here, and I'd be against it at this time.
Any counselors want to say anything else? Okay, we have a motion, this grant a special permit with condition to allow, the City of Holyoke public to access the public safety to access the tower with an antenna. So on that, I think on that motion, I think I'll just do a simple, why don't we just do a roll call since I hear a little confusion. We'll just go from, and I'll vote last. Counselor Roman?
No.
Counselor Tallman?
Yes.
Counselor McGivern?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan? No. And Counselor Bartley will vote yes. So there's a 3-2 recommendation from this body to grant a special permit with a condition. So that's where we are. Okay. I don't think we have any further business. So
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
we on the motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I heard that one before, thanks.
Before we've done that,